Hello everyone, this is here we are, Red Berets Medicare for All, and the lovely Andrea is going to demonstrate how we estimate the length of yarn that we want to have for a long tail cast on. So here she goes.
1, 2, 3, 4.
On another episode, we'll try to demonstrate a short tail cast on.
10.
I always use a long tail.
12.
And you saw that she wrapped it for 12 stitches, and she's now got the length for 12. And we're going to cast on 74, but actually 75. I'll show you what we do with the 75th stitch. So you can see that she's going to have, you say that, Andrea?
6 times 12 is 72,
There
so
we
we'll get approximately 75 stitches out of that long tail.
Perfect.
So now we're going to do...
Now we're going to do a slip knot. And for needles, we're using a worsted weight yarn here. And this is a size 9 and 16-inch length.
Okay. Pick it up, 2 fingers in between, and then grasp the bottom of the tail, of both tails, okay? Come on the outside here, pick up around your index finger, and in the middle, drop it and pull tight, and pick up your thumb again. Come around the outside of your thumb, around this one strand on your index finger, come through here on your thumb, drop it, and pick it up again.
The action is in the thumb. I don't know if you can all
Around
see
the back, around your index finger yarn, and through the thumb.
that thumb
Drop
does
it.
the pull.
Around the thumb, around the index finger, and through the loop on the thumb. Drop it off and pull. So you keep that up until you get to your 75 stitches.
Yep. The basic pattern that we're doing, I have posted on redberetsmedicareforall.com, all spelled out, redberetsmedicareforall.com. And the pattern calls for 74 stitches. We're going to cast on 75, and we'll show you when we join in the round, having an additional stitch, we're going to knit 2 together, and it helps create more of a seamless look. Sometimes just joining in the round, it can create a little bit of a jagged edge, so an additional stitch is really nice. Alright, so here we just make our little slip knot here. Oops. That was a terrible demonstration, but thankfully Andrea already did a good job with that. So let me see if I can, so again, you bring your thumb, this here, the long tail that we measured, is your long tail, and this attached to your skein is your working yarn. So you want to loop your thumb under your long tail.
Be careful.
Do I even have that right? It's so weird to demonstrate this when it's, so you go like this, and then this goes here, and you kind of thread it under this, and you hold, they both come together, and you kind of hold with your index and pinky. I don't know if you can kind of see that.
Yes.
Okay. So then we're going to bring, and I'm kind of holding this in place here. We come underneath and around the front part. You just ignore back there. So let me show you again. You come hook underneath and then behind and pull this through. Then you drop. Then you take your thumb and pull. Now we're going to come under, hook around and through, drop,
Hold it.
and then take the thumb and pull.
Nope. I thought I saw something weird.
Okay, I'm going to kind of switch my angle here.
No, no,
I
no.
don't know if it's
Come to the
helpful to
outside. Your fingers are right.
keep doing it slowly, or what do you think, Carlene?
Do it as fast as you want now. Yeah.
Okay. So we want to cast on, oops.
No, no, no.
So what am I using here? This is a size 9, length is 16. Sometimes I do longer, but it's better to be short so you don't have to stretch it around. Look here, you get to see a chance for me to pick it back up again. That's the first position. Then you take both of these and hold them here.
I just forgot how many I need.
Here, 75.
75?
She said 75. No, no, no. No, no, no.
Let's see, it would be good if right now I guess I will, what kind of shout out can we make for people? Well, when Andrea came in and asked about a particular pattern, we're showing you a really, really basic knitting pattern that only has a couple of different transitions, and in this video we will take you through the different transition phases of this pattern. But with Red Berets, Medicare for All, we don't want creative people and crafters to get bored. We want them to be able to knit their favorite shades of red, yarn weight that they feel comfortable with. So, you know, it's a basic pattern, but I really invite people to search Ravelry.com, or maybe people find things on Pinterest, wherever your resources are. And you can do, there are lots and lots of free patterns on Ravelry.com. And I think there's like all free Ravelry on Facebook. If you're on Facebook, you can join that group, and there's free patterns posted every single day. I'm noticing a lot of Red Berets cropping up on, I'm not on Pinterest, but when I kind of search, do a Google search, I'm seeing that there's a lot, and I see a lot on Etsy, so I don't know if that's a coincidence or if a little bit of the word is getting out, but you'll certainly be able to find a really wide variety of patterns available, and knitters that are far more skilled than me, but this is just an idea that I hope a lot of creative people pick up. And I want to emphasize that we can do a lot of mediums. I hope we get some people that sew, and obviously crochet. I feel crochet is a wonderful medium for hats, so I'll just hope that more and more people get the word about knitting for Medicare for All. So I'm going to count my stitches here. 2, 4,
Count your stitches. How many do you have?
Okay, I went a little bit over there, so losing track as I was talking, so I'll just take off. I've now got 75. That was pretty, and I didn't do the exact thing. I kind of threw in an extra length, I think, so the measurement works quite well. All right, so I'm going to show everybody what to do with this 75th stitch here.
75 is enough. Okay.
So when you join in the round, what you want to do is just make sure that you have both of your yarns behind, and you want to really smooth it around. It's really, really important that you don't join it with a twist in there. So make sure that you check that everything's facing here, okay? And I've got my trusty little stitch marker here. I'm not going to put that on yet, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove my extra stitch, and you'll see that I've hooked my working yarn here. I'm going to take this stitch and move it over to this needle, and then hold here. I'm going to place the stitch marker. Get a little bit of extra working yarn here. Now, here I'm going to knit 2 stitches together there. So that one was just extra, and then I'll give just a little bit of a tug on both here. But knitting those 2 together basically just, I find it makes what turns out to be kind of sometimes an unsightly join. It makes it nice and even. Now, so we've got 1 knit stitch here. This pattern, after your basic cast on and join in the round, wants you to do 1 by 1 ribbing until the piece measures. It's really whatever you like, 1.5 inches to 2 inches. So we'll kind of see where we go with it. That's not a really big matter of importance. So we've just knit the first stitch. Now I need to bring the working yarn in front to purl, and purling, here we go. I've never taught before, as experienced knitters will probably see when they watch this.
I think it's perfect.
Oh, okay, great.
I like how it sounds soothing and calm.
Yes.
Oh, great.
It does.
All right, so here we purl. So with a knit, the working yarn's always going to be at the back. Now we've got to bring it in front again, and the purl goes through the front. Take it off. Now, if we wanted to do another purl, that'd be great, but we've got to move it in back again. And I've got another pattern that I'm working with a really ultra bulky yarn over there that we can show here in a little bit. And its headband is actually 2x2 ribbing, which is a little bit less tedious than, this is the only, I feel, depends on how you feel about ribbing, a little tedious. But whatever. And then I don't know if you can all see, but as we're knitting, you kind of just gotta, it becomes automatic as you get better at, your hand just kind of helps move. The first row after the cast on is going to be a little bit tight and difficult to work. So I forgot to mention, everyone's got a different tension, but I would caution against casting on too tight. So when you're casting on, when you do that little thumb pull, you don't pull it as tight as you can. You want them to be kind of firm, but not super tight, or the first row that you knit is annoying to try to get these stitches around. Maybe what we'll do is finish this round and just show you as we pass by the place marker, and then we'll pause the video and pick it back up when we're closer to where we need to be.
Sounds good.
And a matter of fact, we can even do that now, and I'll just show you. Well, I don't know. Should we make it all the way through to here, Carlene? What do you?
Yeah, I
reckon?
think so.
Okay.
Looks like we're ready for work.
uplifting,
Yeah, I do too.
soothing.
And maybe, you know, here I don't even look. That's another thing. Kind of a bad teacher. I could recommend wooden needles or bamboo needles for beginners because there's a little bit more drag, and so some people maybe find that easier. The metal needles are slippery, but why not jump right in, right? And you can get your metal is much faster. I won't leave my bias out of this. If someone else wants to advocate for bamboo needles, be my guest. I already had to sacrifice my turbo lace needles to use Carlene's. Like, these aren't very sharp, but they work just absolutely wonderfully.
How long have you been knitting?
About 8 years, I think. 7 or 8 years. My sister recommended. By the way, my sister lives in Canada and she loves her health care. So,
Yeah, free
so
healthcare.
yeah. So yeah, but she thought it would be soothing for me, which I'm pretty much
So how does she describe her healthcare compared to ours?
that she doesn't have to go, like, in what respect? I think it's a, like,
I feel like the most important would probably be for women, I guess, having children in that aspect.
yeah, just the fact that she went to the hospital and had a baby and didn't have any paper. She showed up and started receiving care immediately. There wasn't paperwork. There was no stress about, you know, and then things as women, as we realize that we might have a birth plan, but something is maybe going to come up, and then imagine the stress that is going to happen if you realize that the extra procedure, or, you know, you're there longer and that's going to cost more than what you were expecting, you know.
And
So
then if you don't have that health care coverage, then you have to pay out of pocket.
okay,
Yeah.
all right.
Good job.
So
You see?
oh, you will see that this is quite
All
a
right,
small
You got it? So.
head
go all
recess
the way
here.
back
I think
another
this
row.
yarn is a little bit, it is worsted weight, but it's like the finest of the fine worsted weight. So I would have probably, I can't really tell yet. It will be for a small head at the least, and that's okay. I'm not too worried about it. It doesn't matter how much, it's all according to your taste, but this is about an inch to an inch and a half is how much that you want for this 1x1 ribbing. And you'll see we just passed the stitch marker here. So now we're going to do our increases. So we will knit one, and then we'll go as if to knit, and we'll pull this through. But then we're going to go through the back. That looks a little complicated, but it's not.
Yeah, that
You'll
was,
see.
you didn't do
So,
this-
and
you
it
lost the stitch the
alternates,
first
so
time.
that we just created
So,
2 stitches out of one, and it alternates. So
So
now we're
go
going to
in,
go back
go
and
in.
just knit
In
one
and
again. So
around.
it's knit one and then an
Stay with
increase.
this, keep it on this,
Now
in this hand
we
at
will-
all times. You see, I'm pinching and I'm
It's
holding it
as
here.
if to knit, but I
So
don't take
want
it
you to
off of
use this
the
hand for this all the
So you
time.
needles yet. But I'm going to just kind of, I'm going to
Use
take
this finger
this
to
needle
push-
that's in
push this
front,
needle back
and
so
without
that you
taking
can
the
push
stitch
it.
off, I'm going to take it
So you
around
might start out
back,
here, but use this finger,
thread it through the back,
push this so you can
take the
push
yarn
it.
and wrap again.
Okay.
So we've just created a second
it up.
knit stitch here.
Hold this. You see, I let
Now
it
a regular
go,
knit,
but I didn't let this go. 'Cause I wanted
now
to
another
stand on it.
increase. So
Now I'm going to hold this with 2 fingers.
this would just
push
come
this
off if
down.
it was regular, but I'm going to take it
So that you can get it
around,
Okay.
create 2 stitches
I
there.
think it's amazing how
Knit.
I know that I've
It's called a
had,
knit
like,
front back.
injuries
So
and
knit
stuff,
front
and it's amazing to watch how fast you
and knit
fix it
through
up
the back.
and how much
So
I'm struggling.
if you need to see like
But it's also
really
adults.
slow motion,
Really?
you can YouTube all of this stuff, and you would just YouTube knit front back.
So you have this
So this one's going to be our regular knit stitch.
through your
Knit front, come through the back.
Hold on. Nope, nope.
No.
Hold
Take
on
it
to
off.
it.
Hold on.
Between your bottom fingers.
Now I'll speed up just a little
Yeah,
bit
pinch
here.
that. Push
get-
this needle down.
Just want to aim that down.
Through, and then I let go of this one.
I think the total that we want to have on here is 104. I'd have to review the math. I can count when we're finished with this how many you should have. So it's knit 1, knit front back, knit 1, knit front back.
He went home to get his phone. So, wanna get him on the phone? Let's call him, find out where he is.
We did the slow version.
So this is a true story.
Something's wrong with that.
We were doing a bike
Take it
ride,
out.
like, north. And I called for the ride.
So that's part
because I
two.
was done, I was tired or whatever.
I think you try to knit the
Band
same
that
stitch
people up.
twice.
So, I'm in
So,
the van.
this is already knitted, so you should be taking it
Then
off.
I see
Okay.
I
Ryder.
think you tried to pick it up
Catch
again.
up to him.
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
Hey,
So
guess what
once
he's
it's
doing?
knitted, you can see
Riding his
that's actually the
bicycle
same stitch that you
on
just
the phone.
used.
And we're all like,
So it's time to
look at
take
him,
it off.
he's riding his bicycle and he's on his phone. Well, that's what he's doing, he's calling me. And then my
Why is
phone
it hard
rang.
to teach an older person new
Oh,
tricks?
no.
It's an old dog new tricks. Yeah.
That seems like Roger, though. Yeah.
Oh, no, I made it fall off.
Stop.
I'll put it back there.
Okay, good.
Through
I'll let
here.
you talk to me, okay?
Let go of your hand. Come down.
Hold it.
I wish I could think of
Push your
something
needle,
to
yeah,
say
push
while
your
I'm
needle
knitting
back.
here, because this
No,
seems
right
like it's
through
going
the
to
middle.
be boring
You
for
got
people
it.
to
Just
watch.
take it
People can always fast forward.
That's true.
Where are you?
You can push the needle
Okay,
with his
this
thumb.
is knit front, oop, knit front back.
No, you didn't do it. You didn't finish it. You didn't knit it. Now it's knit. Okay. Yep.
Just say.
Start all over again.
This is the pattern that you can either just, and this yarn has a lot of structure to it, so it's going to look really cool just knit as it is. But I love to, with this pattern, felt them, and I just machine felt mine in a hot regular or kind of heavy duty wash.
For the bathroom.
And then it creates kind of a neat classic felted beret that we could kind of demonstrate that another
See how many
time.
stitches you have
Of these? Or these?
on the needle. Okay. Tell me when you get to the end over there.
Oops,
Did you get to
I
the
split
end?
that yarn a little bit there.
What are you
Oh,
doing?
yeah.
You start all over on another row. Okay.
I've done that. Makes it hard.
I just moved
Yeah.
on because I know I got 15 and I just need to keep on doing it.
Wait,
Getting close. I split it again.
and then I gotta let it go, right? I know.
Let's see.
What did I do again? I hate my brain right now.
It's not. It's okay.
I had to
I can
screw
teach
it
you
up.
if you want.
Yeah, you're probably gonna have to
Let's take that out of the weight.
dumb it down through here.
Okay. I don't think you knitted the first stitch.
Oh, I went to the second one.
You put it in here and then you went to the second one somehow.
Because I don't know what I'm doing.
And somehow I know what I'm doing with it.
I know, it's amazing.
I'm just putting a string through a needle.
I'm really used to sharper needles now. I've been knitting with these Addy Lace turbo needles that have the really sharp point, and that's what I really like. So these are now really pretty dull in comparison. But
So I put it through, now I'm gonna let it go.
ultimately, you just have to find what you like to knit with, you know?
Yeah.
A lot of there's plenty of advanced knitters who really enjoy knitting with bamboo, right? I mean, it just depends on what you like.
Not everyone's the same.
Correct. Okay, so here,
You guys could head up to Seattle first.
a lot of times with this, if you happen to have a size up or 1.5 sizes up, I will take this next row, and sometimes I will then take the size up and increase. Like, I will just knit them onto a new thing and do this the rest of the hat with a slightly bigger set of needles, because then you get that nice drape. But I'm not going to do that here, and that's fine too, but I just find that I do that a lot with this pattern. But here, now, this is the most, I guess I'd say, tedious, this 1x1 ribbing in your increase row, which is pretty easy once you've practiced it a few times, but a little tedious until then. But from now until it's time to do reducing rounds, all we're going to do is knit, 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 all the way around until the piece measures,
So I'm going to ask you to hold it.
I don't know, probably 6 or 8 inches. The pattern on Red Berets MedicareForAll.com has the measurements. Again, it's kind of a matter of taste. I would say I always go a little bit beyond what I think is, surely that's enough, you know, because you really want it to be a nice big drapey.
Only through the front.
Beret.
You've gone through both.
It's a matter of preference, and you have to knit a couple of them to determine what you really like. Okay, so we're gonna stop there, because that's all you do is just continue to knit in the round and round. Alright, so I wanted to show everybody back in this other hat that is in its earlier stage, that I don't think I said, and this isn't a necessity, but a lot of times so that we can have a nice, there's quite a lot of give here in this, so this is plenty stretchy. After we do move from the knit 1, purl 1 ribbing, and we do our increase round of knit 1, knit front back, knit 1, knit front back, that increase round, and then the following round is when you just knit all the way around and continue to knit on. So on that first, where you're just knitting all the way around, I often will transition, if you cast on with a size 8 or a size 9, whatever you cast on with, I will usually take like a size 10.5 or 11, so you can see I'm on bigger needles here, and right after the stitch marker, right when we start that first knit round, I will just go in with the 1.5 to 2 size bigger needles, because then it helps us get that bigger, drapier effect of the beret. So I just thought I'd show you that. I knit with bigger needles once we do our increases. Now, done enough of our increases that we would be stretching too much to try to, we are going to need to go to double pointed needles to finish the decreases on this hat. So I always knit 1 stitch past the place marker. So I'll just get this out of our way, and I've just done a knit round, so we're ready for another. Remember that it decreases and then it's a knit and then a decrease round and a knit, alternating. So now we're ready for, you can see how clear that it becomes after you've done quite a few rows. It's very obvious that these two need to go together. So we just knit the 1, so we're on knit 3, knit 2 together. So we've knit that one, and we're going to come in with our double pointed needle. It's just a little awkward until you get past this needle right here. There's 1, 2, knit 2 together. And this is a slight, you can see this is a little bit of a smaller needle. That's because I left my double pointed needles at home. So I'm using what the shop is offering me. Again, this is going to be washed and felted. You might not do this if not, as it'll change the but it's not going to substantially affect anything. But for those of you who do knit and watch this and say, why is she using different size needles? That's why. This is what I have to work with. So this is probably a size 8 or 9, and that's okay. Okay, so we just knit those together. We'll do
Lighting is important. That's funny. No, I can appreciate that.
I'll do one more set and then we'll switch to the next. 1, 2, 3. Knit these 2 together. Now I'll drop that. All you gotta do is just make sure that you're, and you can use wooden or metal. Just because you used metal here, if all you have is wooden, doesn't matter. Whatever you like to do. I'm obviously not somebody who is super technical and bothered by these details. Some people are, so you do what works for you. So, but you just want to make sure your stitches are kind of in the middle, and you can just drop the needles. And here we are going to move on to the second. So we're going to get a little triangle here. So knit 3, knit 2 together. Oops, it's catching. Knit 2 together. We'll do one more here. Doesn't really matter, again, exactly, as long as you have, you know, sort of roughly the same or similar number of stitches on each of your 3 needles. So you can, so that's fine. Now we're going to center and drop that. Pick up our 3rd needle. Knit. Now, here's where I made a good old knitter's mistake. There should be 3 stitches there. There's not. So that's where I got to knitting and not paying attention, but at this point, oh well. And again, we're watching that, or washing it and felting. It's really okay. Someone else might unpick that and find the mistake. Nope, I'm not going to do that one. I'm going to wash and felt this. Oops. Split the yarn there. And here's our last. Every round we still continue to have this last spare stitch before the place marker. That's not a mistake. That's the way the pattern is. Switch the place marker here. And again, I'm going to knit that first stitch onto this needle though to keep my place marker from falling off, and slide these to the center. And bye-bye circular needle. Now this next round is just knit again, because we're alternating rows. So we just decreased, so we're going to knit. Got a little rust on this needle. She said she got these from a good old garage sale. I'm not picky. Slide it to the center. If you've never worked with double pointed needles before, it can be a little bit awkward, but you get the hang of it, and it's a good skill to have.
Oh, you're kidding. That's pretty cool. This is honestly. So this one's just a really simple counter. So did you buy it? So what do you do with that? Make your own pattern? So this one you can make your own, or you
I mean, this is a quicker
How
knit
about
if you
stitch needle?
use
Have you been to stitch
a little
needle?
bit
It's the same thing.
heavier or coarser of yarn than this, but okay, so now we're getting very, very close here.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that's nice.
So this
That's
is our,
nice.
our
Where did you get the
decrease
apps,
round.
Like the app store?
Yeah, so that was the free one.
It's very easy to tell now where you were. Here's your neat little line that's coming up. This is going to be knit 2 together. Knit 1, 2.
Mom, we better get home soon.
All
because
right.
It's only at 10%.
I see. So we'll be finished soon, okay?
This one's complicated. I like this one.
Knit 2 together.
Nice.
And then I found one for Samsung because tablet that one I really like, where it'll even like you can put the pattern stitching for it, more stitches per inch, but you're getting
And this is our mistake right here. This is 1,
That's that little tiny.
2.
Do you remember? Were you here when we were showing that? Yeah.
Was
So
that
you
right?
have the app version of that. Yeah.
Doesn't matter. You go
Nice.
according to the lines at this point. Hopefully you pay attention and don't make any mistakes.
Do you like kimchi?
I'm saving it for like actual going to I don't want to ruin it myself.
So the kimchi we have in the back, Randy made it. You know Randy.
I
I
feel
honestly
like,
think it could be the best.
what did I
kimchi
do
I've
here?
ever eaten.
See, I've got to backtrack that because I just skipped right over that one. I was like, how many stitches do I have to go? This was the one that was really short.
Well, I was gonna offer you some, but I don't know if I want to like ruin your life. I was gonna say take your virginity. It's like, we got Swedish meatballs. Would you rather some of those? It's not actually not meat. It's we went to get the meatballs, but they are vegetarian meats. They're really good. They
Yeah,
feel
they
good.
were really good from IKEA. She got the
I
fish
I
meatballs.
turned off the crock pot, so do you think you might want them heated?
So we're
or
going
are
to
you okay
do,
with
now
room
this one, well actually I'll put this on this needle one more time.
I personally like.
So
room
this is
temperature
going to be
stuff.
our
I
last
don't like things hot or cold.
round
because my
of,
teeth have sensitive teeth.
um,
You have sensitive teeth?
our last round before
When
our
you
last
had your
reduction
fillings
round. So
taken
this
out?
is, here we're going to knit all the way around here. And our
Um,
next round
I would
is
always keep fillings from now on.
our
instead of
final
having the white
reducing
porcelain
round.
stuff put in, the white porcelain stuff.
I would tell you exactly how many stitches you're supposed to
that's what I
have on the
thought.
needle, but again,
But then
you
once
can
they
find
were
this
taken out
written
and the
up
white
pattern
porcelain-
on
the
Red
white stuff was
Berets,
put in, then I had
medicareforall.com.
It's like
And,
hot and cold sensitivity, so I never had that with silver.
Since I've made 1 or 2 mistakes on here, the number of stitches that I have is not quite exactly correct. Anyway, I will have 1, probably, or 1 or 2 fewer than what I should have.
I'm supposed to be working. I
But
just
it's-
want you to know that.
I know you're
And when I
supposed to
sit
be
in that
working, but
chair,
I feel guilty.
No, when I sit in that chair, it looks like I'm not working.
Is there a punishment for that? No.
Okay, here we go. Last round. Move the stitch marker. Here, this stitch is going to need to be over here on this needle, so I'm gonna just transfer that there. It wouldn't have need to be. But here, I can just say goodbye to the place marker because this is our last round here. So that's knit 1, knit these 2 together.
Wow. Good job.
You know, I might have been wrong. We could probably do 1 more round. hopefully nobody came to this demonstration for perfection or technical skills, because you can find that on YouTube anytime you want. This is the Medicare for All. I show you the way I knit, and it's sometimes with mistakes and kind of go with the flow. So, yeah, so we could take it down even less than that, but I really think that's just fine. So you could go around another time and then knit two together. I'm not going to do that. This is good enough, and you just pretty much only need enough to be able to thread this onto a darning needle and tuck the ends in, which I'm going to show you how to do. So, I don't know, a good little over a foot is just plenty. And we'll just kind of wet the end of that or hold it really close. And I've got my trusty little darning needle that has a little, it has a it bends a little bit at the end.
Right, and some people who knit on straight sticks.
Makes it easier for hooking in than having some of them are straight. I find that I like the one that has the little bend on it. Maybe the other one is not actually called a darning needle. Okay, so you want to go in the direction that you would if you were going to be continuing to knit. So I've just got this threaded on my darning needle, and now I'm going to feed the stitches from the double pointed needles onto the yarn, onto the darning needle. So I can do a couple at a time here, and you're just literally taking them off of the double pointed needle onto, you can pull that through and now come around to the where you would be. It's just very easy to follow where you would be knitting. And pull it through. And pull it through and pull it tight. Yeah, so I'm getting to the, this will certainly be fine. Look at how it makes this pretty kind of pinwheel type pattern, which will pretty much disappear when we felt it. And again, you don't need to felt it. It'll look really pretty with a different yarn that's like that, but I, in the interest of time, started doing the reductions a little sooner than for a felted beret than what I would have preferred, and that's fine. This is going to make just a lovely beret that might be for a smaller head. I probably would have measured it, if this is probably about 4.5 to 5 inches right here, I probably would have gone another inch to 1.5 inches just to make sure that it was big enough. But again, this will be just perfect for someone's head, but just kind of let you know that if you're wanting to felt it and you kind of, this might be just a little bit small for what you might want to go for. That's okay. Now again, really technical people can watch this and say, oh, that's not how you would do it. I like to take it right through the hole here, the main hole, and now work from this side. And again, just before we start weaving, just give it a tug so it's nice and tight, because you don't want to have that gaping hole as it's alright. Now I really literally just start to find some stitches here that we can weave it in and out of. This is, on certain patterns it might matter if it's really, really precise or you go a particular direction. It doesn't matter here. It's going to felt together. And it wouldn't matter in the other pattern either. You just, if you're really a process person and you want it to be all even, just go around in a straight or a circular neat line. Find what is the neatest for you. I don't care. I'm really haphazard on it, so I'm just finding some stitches to work this in and out of. You do one stitch at a time, because if you go through a bunch of them, and you don't want to create where you could see the yarn on the other side. But I just did 2 there. It's okay. I like to break the rules. Anyway, just I always want to be on the safe side and do enough, but really this is good here. The hole tends to get really, that's gonna be okay. All right, and then cut it like, you know, 1/2 inch, or, and then it'll just disappear into the, that's fine. Okay. All right, I am gonna show you how to do a rose, which the rose looks particularly, that's another reason I love doing the felted ones, is because the felted rose looks really pretty. And so a lot of times, if I'm knowing that I'm gonna knit for a nurse, or for someone who just really likes roses, and the rose is significant for nurses, but also DSA. DSA, Medicare for All. So I put roses on a lot of these. Now I did the little trick that we had demonstrated at the beginning of the video, where we wrapped how many stitches around. I'm going to want 80, so I wrapped it around 10 times and came up with a little length, and then did that 8 times. So for my long tail cast on, that's about how much that I'm going to need for 80 stitches. It's not, again, with felting, it's not really rocket science here. We could do 70 or 80 stitches, you'll see. So I'm going to do, for my little slip knot, I just wrap it around my finger and come through, and that's my slip knot. And here we go. Remember, we get our fingers here, and the thumb and the forefinger come through, and then these 2 bottom fingers kind of hold. You're coming down to the bottom rung here and hooking it, and coming back through the front of the back 2 and bringing it through. I don't think that I am explaining that very well at all, but we had it demonstrated at the beginning, so it's okay. And remember, you can go on YouTube with just a cast on, or you can go learn a short tail cast on, because on short tail cast ons you don't have to estimate how much yarn you're going to need. But I really like long tail cast ons, so that's what I do, and I just estimate my yarn, and I'm usually, you know, pretty close or close enough. So I think I'm going to cast on about 80 stitches here for this felted rose. Oops. Kind of dropped it here, so that's okay. Here we go.
But when I realized that couch had been in that store for so long, I said, we'll take one of those, please. And it does not take in dirt. So it was pretty cheap. You remember, Roger? I don't remember.
I don't really know why we could pause it, but let's see what I've got here. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24, 26, 28, 30, 32,
Yeah, in our house, we sit on one
34. Just wait there, please, honey. 35, 36, 37, 38, 39. All right, so I have cast on 70 stitches. As I was looking at this, I think that is what I just found this little basic pattern on YouTube. And again, it doesn't really matter. I think it's 70. It depends on how big you want the rose to be, really. So that's, this is gonna be just fine. Okay, we'll pause a couple of times here because I don't want you to walk, but basically this rose is knit. It's just like 8 or 10 rows in garter stitch, so all you're gonna do is knit every single row. So I'm gonna go and knit all the way across and then turn around, and as you can see, I'm using circular needles here. I do almost all of my work on circular needles. It doesn't matter, you just never join it. You just, once we get to the other end, you'll flip it around. But I'll do this row just to make sure everyone's clear on that. I must have cast that on a little bit tight. There really are a lot of very skillful knitters and really well done knitting tutorials for just about any pattern that you would possibly want to look up. If you're getting your Red Beret patterns on Ravelry.com or Free Ravelry on Facebook or Pinterest or wherever it is that you get your knitting and crocheting patterns. I think I was clear at the beginning of this video that with Red Beret's Medicare for All, I chose red initially from the inspiration of National Nurses United because they are a labor union that strongly advocates for national improved Medicare for all, and they know that if other developed nations on Earth have either some form of universal health care or a single payer system, we, the wealthiest nation on Earth, absolutely can do the same. It will save money, it will cover everybody. We won't have all of these, I think it's one of the biggest cause of homelessness is medical bankruptcy, or the second biggest reason. And it's just a travesty that we have tens and thousands of people dying because they can't afford to see a doctor. So I wanted to bring creativity to the Medicare for All movement, and we are strongly supportive of all good universal health care or single payer. That's not the same as a public option. We're talking about Medicare for all or a single payer system, and so we do a lot of advocacy work locally for whole Washington, and then of course supporting such bills as Senator Sanders' bill SB 1804 and what will be Representative Pramila Jayapal's new bill. I'm not sure the bill number or if we know it yet, but it was previously HR 676 for the House. And there's a lot of debate among single-payer advocates and everybody that is in this conversation about what is the best bill or what is the best way to get there, state level or at the federal level. With Red Berets, I want us to focus on increasing grassroots involvement and bringing everybody in to the activism fold so that we are supporting all good efforts and not getting into the debate of we will support this bill and not the other. I do want to emphasize that when people are for a public option or for shoring up the ACA or for Medicare Advantage Plus, any of these centrist corporate friendly alternatives that will have Medicare in the title, but they're not Medicare for all. That is not what Red Berets are doing. We do not support those efforts. We do not believe that we need a pathway to get there. We need a truly single-payer system, and that is what we are putting our advocacy behind. And so we do, in addition to crafting these Red Berets, we ask people to get involved with their local Our Revolution groups, canvassing for Justice Democrats who are running on an unapologetic Medicare for All platform. Local nurses or DSA groups that are working on going out and canvassing. Anything that's happening in your local community where you can kind of plug this creativity in to the advocacy work, any groups that are fighting strongly or, you know, working on Bernie Sanders' campaign. He's the one who has introduced this legislation. He's the one that we know has advocated for decades. We don't need to wonder if he's the Medicare for All candidate because he's the one that's been fighting for it for decades. So anyone that co-sponsored his legislation because they knew that they were going to run in 2020, for me personally, and I know I can speak for a lot of Red Berets so far, you know, platitudes and promises and just simple co-sponsorship are not enough. We appreciate their co-sponsorship, but in order to actually see us move to National Improved Medicare for All, we will need to elect a lot of new Congress people to the Senate and to the House, because we have a lot of representatives that are taking corporate PAC money from, you know, insurance companies and pharma, and they can say that they're for, you know, eventually moving in that direction, but that's a conflict of interest. You cannot be both for your corporate donors and for a system that would truly benefit the 99%. The two are the opposite, and you're one or the other. Sweetheart, hang in there another minute, okay, please. So that's that. I want to provide that clarity on this video because people have asked me, is this the Bernie group? Do you have to be, you know, for Bernie in order to wear a red beret? And the simple answer to that is no. I mean, this is a grassroots movement. I can't make you, you know, maybe you are strongly supportive of Tulsi Gabbard. I think that Medicare for All is on her platform. She would be the other candidate. I have my issues with Elizabeth Warren, even just if we focus only on Medicare for All. I am not going to get into the other reasons why I personally have very strong reservations about calling her a candidate that I would support. But I have really carefully watched who has been using their social media platform to help educate voters and to get the word out about why the numbers make sense and how we will pay for Medicare for All and how many lives it will save and all of that stuff. That has all been strongly advocated for by Senator Sanders, and I saw almost complete silence on the other Twitter feeds up until when it was convenient, about a month ago when 2 months ago when everybody started to announce. That's when we started to see a little bit show up. That's not good enough for me. I'm the founding member, so I really speak for Red Berets as a grassroots organization. We need to put our support behind someone who is willing to go out and endorse uncorrupted candidates who are not taking any corporate PAC money. And the only person who did that in the midterms, again, I didn't follow Tulsi closely enough to know if she was endorsing and campaigning for uncorrupted Democrats. It might be the case, and let me know about that, but I certainly absolutely know that Senator Sanders was doing that, and our revolution with President former Ohio State Senator Nina Turner, who was the president of our revolution. Absolutely, our revolution endorsed uncorrupted Democrats who were running on Medicare for All. And this is the reason why when people ask me, are Red Berets the Bernie group? Everything that we can point to, evidence-wise, and activism-wise, and leadership-wise, points to Senator Sanders as being the leader of this movement who will actually fight hard enough to help us move in that direction. So my answer is yes, essentially. Now what is great about these is if people want to be quite apolitical, like they really believe in organizing for issues and not on a, partisan or for particular candidates, that's completely fine. Get a red beret and put a Represent Us button, or a Medicare for All, or a Physician for a National Health Plan, PNHP, Nurses United, whatever organization, or just Medicare for All, just a button that says Medicare for All. So I'm saying this is your beret if you believe in National Improved Medicare for All, and you believe that we need to organize outside of partisan politics. We have found a vehicle for you to be included on that. You do not have to wear buttons of any particular candidates or party affiliation. I'm knitting these for strong progressive Democrats, and I'm knitting them for Green Party members, and I'm knitting them for anyone who is building efforts for a progressive or movement for a People's Party, nurses. I hope I'm conveying that this is about the issue. It's also that if there are candidates, like I've been knitting for Sima Hernandez because she's running for Senate in Texas against Senator Cornyn, and she is a fierce Medicare for All advocate, uncorrupted, taking no corporate PAC money. So if it were me and I was going to a rally and I lived in Texas, I would have my SEMA for Texas button on my red beret. That's me. But you can see that there's a lot of flexibility in your choice, what you choose to put, which buttons you choose to pin on your beret. I would have a conversation, again, this is very grassroots, and so people will pin what buttons that they do on. I will educate people as to if someone asks me, or they're like, well, doesn't Kamala Harris support Medicare for All? She's a co-sponsor. If this person's out advocating for Medicare for All, I'm not going to be, rude or uncivil about it. If they ask me the question about it, I would be the person to say, well, we have to follow the money and we have to follow the track record of that person, and not just when it became politically expedient to co-sponsor. And also saying that, we kind of need Medicare for All, but we might be fine to do, a pathway or a public option first. That, for me, that's absolutely a non-starter, and I think that I speak for many, almost every person that's in the Red Berets movement so far. Possibly not everybody, but we're very much about looking at following the money and following where has this person, have they led with their values, and what have they, as a grassroots activist who I've knit hundreds of these by now and gone out gathering signatures for whole Washington when they had Initiative 1600. my litmus test is not just for somebody to stand and say that they are for for Medicare for all. It's actually, wow, here's how many hours that I have donated to this cause, and I expect the person who's asking for my vote to have done at least as much as a grassroots activist has. And I feel like that should be, everybody should have, you know, a similar standard, because how would we really expect, you know, to, you know, as people are very fond of pointing out, we're up against incredible corporate influence, a lot of, you know, money and power with Big Pharma and the insurance companies that will throw a lot at defeating this. So, you know, my question to people would be, if somebody hasn't been brave enough and clear enough to call out that we need to take the profit motive out of insurance, out of our healthcare system, and been, you know, consistently on that message throughout most or a significant portion of their career, why would we think that, you know, that's going to be their agenda? Anyway. So I'm just knitting. I kind of, it's easy to be able to speak a little bit about this. We're getting close to what we need to do here. I probably need about 2 to 4 more rows. All right, so I could, how many rows have we got here? 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Is that right? 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Yeah, we've got 10 rows here. I could have done even 1 more, or 2 more rather, but this is actually going to be just fine. Again, doesn't matter. I've cut it, this is going to be about the right length of yarn, a foot or 2. And we need our darning needle here. And basically we're going to just take all of the stitches off the needles.
As of today, Pauletta got the
I do
boot,
like 4 or 5 at a time.
and it's Patty. Patty's replacing Pauletta. Yeah. So here's the funny thing. Patty called me.
And in case there's something that I haven't explained very well on here, I bet you could,
Right?
that's where I found it. You can go to YouTube and just look up knitted rows. And there will probably be a few versions, but you'll see that there's a 3-dimensional rows, and maybe they go into more detail or show it better than I have. And a lot that I've learned how to do, I've discovered on YouTube. Can literally, if you, and that's what the other thing I started to say before I went off on the kind of political side of things is I wanted to make sure to convey to people that we're not being rigid about the shade or the pattern, because we don't want people to get bored. So any shade, any pattern, any yarn weight, knit, crochet, sew, whatever your medium, and you know, any beret-like or you know, slouchy red hat. I tried to say beret or tam, you know, or something that's really similar to it in shape, because we want it to have some recognizable bit of uniformity to it. But besides that, I think the more artistic license, the better, so that we can kind of keep crafters interested in doing this for the foreseeable future.